What's going on, friends? For years, Harley-Davidson motorcycles were always known as kind of the common rider's bike. But something happened. Harley-Davidsons just got ridiculously expensive. So what exactly is it that makes a Harley-Davidson motorcycle command so much more money than any other motorcycle on the market? Is it something about the build quality? Is it just something behind the name? But it is no doubt Harley-Davidson motorcycles are some of the most expensive bikes you could possibly buy. Harley-Davidson has branded itself as a premium motorcycle brand, the pinnacle of motorcycles that you could possibly own. Now, in some ways, I will agree with that. There's a lot of things on a Harley-Davidson that I would agree are actually premium that you can't get anywhere else, but at the same time, and I'm sure a lot of you would agree, there are some things about Harley-Davidson motorcycles that are, well, let's just say less than premium. Now, I'm not talking about the features and the technology in the bikes. You can get that with pretty much any brand, and a lot of times with most other brands, you can get more premium features and technology. With that all being the same, there's just something Harley-Davidson does that no other manufacturer can match. Guys, please don't forget, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. The first area where Harley-Davidson excels above every other manufacturer is going to be in their paint quality. Now, while the CVOs and the limited edition paint sets are actually contracted out to a custom shop to get painted, even the regular everyday Harley-Davidson models that roll out of the factory, they have top quality paint that, honestly, in my opinion, is just not matched right out of the factory by any other manufacturer out there. Now, one of the best things about Harley-Davidson was they always had a plethora of paint colors to choose from. Now, with Johann Zeitz taking over the company, they've really kind of scaled that back as part of a cost-saving measure, which I guess necessarily isn't a bad thing because, honestly, with as many paint colors they used to offer, it was really hard to decide. And you would think, with all the different color names that they had, they paid somebody to sit in a little dark room somewhere and just come up with names for all these different paint colors. Now, make no mistake, Harley-Davidson does painting a motorcycle black better than anybody out there. It's hard to beat a vivid black Harley-Davidson. That vivid black absolutely matches anything and everything everywhere you go. Harley-Davidson does use a lot of premium materials for all the touch points on the bike. Generally speaking, Harley-Davidson, where most manufacturers will use a cheaper grade of plastic, Harley-Davidson will use some kind of metal, usually aluminum, for a lot of their switch housings. A lot of your different touch points are going to be metal and not plastic. This is really something that not a lot of other manufacturers do. And also, Harley-Davidson, they powder coat those black, which in, my opinion, it looks a lot better than just kind of that raw silver finish that you see on a lot of metric bikes. Now, this does add a significant cost to the build of the motorcycle, but honestly, the finished product in the end, I believe that's well worth the extra money that you pay when it comes to that fit and finish. Now, aside from the aesthetics and the overall beauty of the design, there are a lot of other things that could potentially lead to a Harley-Davidson just flat costing more than any other manufacturer. And I'm not just talking about the name, although I believe that is a huge part of it. Harley-Davidsons just run forever. These bikes will run till about the end of time. Now, anything will do that if you take good care of it. The difference is that with a Harley-Davidson, these bikes are pretty much infinitely rebuildable. With other manufacturers, there's not as many parts available out there. A lot of times those bikes go out of production, parts get really scarce. But the thing with Harley-Davidson is that they pretty much keep everything the same for a very, very long period of time, and there's a large demand for it, so a lot of aftermarket companies pick up the parts, even if Harley-Davidson themselves is to discontinue a part for an engine. Now, make no mistake, Harley-Davidson full well knows this. This could lead to why they charge more up front, knowing that you can keep just about any Harley-Davidson running for infinity as long as the parts are being cranked out by the aftermarket manufacturers, which we know that's going to continue to happen. So think about this. How much would you be willing to pay for a motorcycle that never broke? Let's say this thing's never going to wear out, it's never going to break down, it's just engineered to be infinitely reliable without any issues ever. You can imagine up front, that bike is going to cost a very pretty penny. Another thing that would definitely contribute to the cost of a Harley-Davidson is the fact that they are built right here in America. Our labor rates are a lot higher than anywhere else in the world, plus you have a union over there, so that does tend to drive the cost up a little bit because those guys typically get paid higher wages. Now, I already know what you're probably thinking. Yes, they are built here in the USA, but Harley-Davidson does source different parts from all over the world. You may have a wiring harness that's made somewhere else in the world, and they take that wiring harness and it's basically assembled, say in Mexico, and then they'll ship that wiring harness from Mexico to the factory where it can be installed on the assembly line. Now, another arguable point about Harley-Davidson being so expensive is just the absolute vast support network that you have out there. It's really hard to go anywhere in any state and not be relatively close to a Harley-Davidson dealership, not to mention an independent shop that can also generally get the same parts, or they work with a Harley-Davidson dealership to get OEM parts. This is just something you don't find with any other manufacturer. Number one, you don't really find dealerships on every corner, and number two, you don't find nearly as many independent shops that are actually specializing in a particular brand of motorcycle. And nothing against metric bikes, but metric bikes can be very hard to get parts for, especially if you have an older motorcycle. And a lot of times when you go to repair those, the cost can actually outweigh what the bike's actually worth. Now, I have to admit, Indian's dealer network is expanding, it is growing, but it has got a long way to go to actually catch up to what Harley-Davidson is now. And honestly, I'm not even 100% sure there's a whole lot of independent shops out there that'll actually work on Indian motorcycles, other than basically an oil change. I know with Victory, there was quite a few indie shops out there that actually specialized in Victory. So even if you're not buying a new Harley-Davidson, you're still going to pay more for a used Harley-Davidson, even an older model, versus any other manufacturer, but you may not have that dealer support, but you will have those independent shops, because anything Twin Cam Evo, even back to the shovel head, maybe even the pan head, there are independent little shops everywhere that they eat, sleep, live, and breathe these motors, so you're not left out in the cold. Now, owning a Harley-Davidson is a very expensive venture. Not just with the upfront cost, the maintenance, it's not too bad, especially if you do it yourself, but where it really gets expensive is when you get into all the parts and accessories that are available out there to customize your bike. You start doing something to your Harley, start building it into something, it's pretty much infinitely never ending, and about the only thing that could stop it is an empty bank account and maxed out credit cards. If you're looking for something that's got a cheap upfront cost and basically you just want to ride it, you don't want to do a whole lot to it, and value is more what's in mind for you, Harley-Davidson may not be for you. There's all kinds of different brands of motorcycles out there, especially metrics. They're excellent bikes, they're very reliable, but honestly, in my opinion, you're not going to be able to keep them running forever like you can a Harley. But if you're definitely looking for a motorcycle that can honestly be the last motorcycle you ever have to buy, as long as you don't decide that, oh, well, I kind of want something different, you can keep a Harley-Davidson forever. There is parts and support out there, which is, as I mentioned, just basically infinite. So you can keep this bike forever for yourself, or even pass it down to your kids, or your kids can pass it down to their grandkids. These bikes can stay in the family for generations. There are a lot of things about Harley-Davidson that we could go on and on about that aren't exactly premium. Yeah, I hate to admit it, they have that premium price, but there are some things about them that Harley-Davidson could honestly do a heck of a lot better, which more than likely they're not. Honestly, for the cost of a new Harley-Davidson coming out of the factory, this is just GixxerFoo's opinion here, Harley-Davidson should be doing what a lot of the independent shops, and even some of the Harley-Davidson dealers that are building monster motors, they should still be putting a true crank in them, and honestly, they should still have that Timken bearing bottom end. That was honestly the worst mistake Harley-Davidson ever made in getting away from that. But one thing we can say is that Harley-Davidson really seems to have their electronics in order. And that is very, very important on these newer motorcycles. Having those solid electrical systems on these bikes to run all the tech, not to mention the engine management systems, that is just about critical on any new motorcycle. And honestly, that is something that I feel like Indian has really kind of struggled with in some cases. Indians have had their fair share of electrical issues. But guys, let me know in the comments, is the price of a new Harley-Davidson really justified? Heck, let's even go with the Indian too. Do you guys feel like the Indian is worth the money for what it is? But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. Please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. You guys ride safe this Memorial weekend, dodge those cars, and I will catch you guys back here next week with a brand new video. Thanks for watching.